Okay, hello everyone. It's 2 o'clock, so let's begin. Thank you everybody for joining us on time. This is one of Wild Apricot's monthly expert webinars. Today, we're honored to have Nancy Schwartz with us. Nancy helps nonprofits grow using her marketing and communications expertise. So before we get into it, I'm just going to take a quick poll to find out what are your biggest challenges with creating a team. So I'm just going to launch the poll here and give you guys about a few seconds to get your answers in, just to figure out what your biggest challenges are with creating a team. Okay, 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. And let's see the results here. All right, so it looks like majority of you got motivating your team and training your team. Okay, so Nancy will definitely get to those later. Great, so I'm gonna bring Nancy on shortly, but in the meantime, let me introduce myself. My name is Sonia Kosla, and I'm on the Wild Apricot content team. And beside me is my colleague Stephen, who will be on the chat to help you with any technical issues you might have. So during the webinar, feel free to ask us any questions to us or Nancy, and to do that, you can use the chat box. Now, I want to make a couple of quick reminders before moving on. First, I want to let you know that we will be recording this webinar, and we will send you an email with a link to the recording within the next couple of days or so. So watch out for that. And I also want to let you know that we are a CAE provider. So by attending today's webinar, you are eligible to earn 1 CAE credit. Okay, so we'll get going in just another couple of minutes, but let me briefly say that today's webinar is being brought to you by Wild Apricot. I know that many of our customers are on here with us today, so a big welcome to all of you. But I also know that we have many people here who aren't familiar with Wild Apricot, and I want to welcome you all as well. So for those of you who don't know, Wild Apricot is membership management software. It's actually an all-in-one solution for anyone running a membership organization. And that's because you can actually manage your member and contact database, run your events, build your website, process all your payments, and so on. So many of our customers consider it a lifesaver because it saves them hours a day in administrative tasks, freeing them up to focus on fulfilling their organization's mission. And we're quite thrilled with what many of our clients have been able to accomplish. We've watched them grow since we started 12 years ago, and they've watched us grow too. So, and thanks to our customers, we've been ranked as the #1 rated membership management software solution on the market 7 times in a row. And while we pride ourselves on helping people with great software, we're also a leading provider of free educational content, which you'll find on our blog and in webinars like today's. Now, if any of you have any questions about Wild Apricot, we're happy to answer them at the end of the webinar. So I'll just take a quick poll to find out how many of you would be interested in sticking around after the webinar to chat about Wild Apricot. I'll just give you a few seconds there to get your answers in. 5 more seconds. Okay, great. Perfect. Well, thank you very much, everyone. And now let me bring on Nancy. So, Nancy is a consultant, trainer, and a coach who guides nonprofit organizations to connect them with their people and motivate them to act. She brings contagious passion and refreshing practicality to her clients and to the field via her blog, gettingattention.org. Nancy volunteers with the Interfaith Food Bank of the Oranges and her local garden club. She serves on the NTEN board for 2 terms. Nancy enjoys gardening, cooking, hiking, and travel, solo and with her family. So, without further ado, Nancy, welcome.
Well, thanks so much, Sonia. I'm so glad to be here today, and I am thrilled about sharing this very interesting and seldom used technique on creating a team to increase impact. It's wonderful, and I'm just thrilled to be here. Thanks for providing the opportunity. As Sonia mentioned, I am a marketing consultant, trainer, coach. I just love it all. I'm convinced of the power of effective marketing and communications for nonprofits, and I hate to see organizations like yours miss this proven path to improving your connections with the people whose help you need to meet your mission. These are some of the organizations that I'm working with or have worked with. And my garden, as you see, it's a little drenched right now due to recent storms, but I'm faithful that the sun will come out again. So, again, so happy to be here with you. I feel that communications and marketing, and I'm going to use those terms interchangeably today, are absolutely vital because they offer a two-part path to impact. First of all, they give you an opportunity to build strong, lasting connections with target audiences, the people whose help you need to meet your mission and make your impact. Secondly, through communications, you have the opportunity to motivate those target audiences to act, and that's what directly drives your impact forward. But I'd like to know a little bit more about you before I continue with me or our topic today. So please tell me, how is your organization staffed? Please select one of the answers, and I look forward to sharing the results with you. Got a few more minutes. Really eager to hear where you are. This is a crucial input in the direction you'll go today. All right. So it's great. Some of you are quite well staffed. I see that the greatest number of you have 3 or more staff members, but then tied for second place in terms of today's participants are 1 to 2 full-time staff members and all volunteer run. What's interesting is that no matter how many staff members you have, there's never enough time, talent, or budget to meet membership, revenue, fundraising, or impact goals. What I hear from you and the other nonprofits I'm constantly in touch with is that whether you're a solo staffer, a volunteer, one among a large team of 5, 10, or more, you all tell me the same thing. You know what you need to do, but you can't get beyond those ironclad limits of time and budget. Well, today I feel so lucky to be able to share with you a gift, a way to increase your communications reach and impact. That is, communications working to deliver on your mission without more hires and budget. Here it is. We all have an incredible resource right in front of us. Our colleagues, members, volunteers, and board. And whoops, just as you discuss your work, your passions, your affiliation with your friends, families, and colleagues, so do these potential messengers. They talk about your organization, and that's especially true for your colleagues and probably your members, on your focus, your programs, and the way you make it all happen. What's wonderful is with the right planning, training, support, and incentives, this team of messengers can become even more powerful. Unfortunately, and frequently this is because we're just so head down getting our to-do list done, most of us look right past these folks as we tackle our responsibilities in the way we've always done. As much as we might know that there could be better way to do things, it's hard to drag ourselves away from the to-do list to learn it. So thanks so much for taking time out today. Sometimes I hear a fear of getting approval from the powers that be folks who are afraid of losing control over how the organization is presented. Well, I urge you to push through these barriers. It's worth it. I promise you, and I'm delighted to show you how. Oops. We got to Okay, so today I'm going to partner with you to shape an approach that works for your organization, doing it one step at a time. Please take brief notes as we go through. I'm going to ask you to think about a couple of things we talk about as we go. But as Sonia mentioned, you're going to get a bunch of resources in the follow-up email and a link to the video, which will give you an opportunity to review it. I'm going to mention many examples today, and you'll find links to those all of those models and a couple of articles on this approach as well in the follow-up email. So I urge you to just kind of be in it right now, and let's review what we're going to cover today. We have an ambitious but doable agenda today. What's wonderful, I think, is that the examples of so many folks who are doing it, and these will help you see what I'm really talking about, and also provide wonderful models and sort of proofs of concept to share with any of the folks in your organization or on your board who might be hesitant about jumping into this approach. There are two elements to consider before you start planning this program. And one is what's happening now. It's crucial to be aware of the world in which you're working into and communicating into. First, I want to share a couple of insights from the PR firm Edelman's annual trust barometer. And these are results from the 2019 study recently released. First of all, what Edelman finds is that relevance is crucial for all the content that comes from your organization. And that means anything from conversations to social media posts. People expect communications to be timely and personal. We've all put up heavy duty personal filters to deal with the overwhelming amount of content and, frankly, the fake news. We used to be able to get away with stuff like this, talking about us. We have a new website. We have a new executive director or president. We have a new brand. Well, now that's all a big who cares. What's important is that you get to know your people, that you understand what's important to them, what they want, more important than what they need, their habits, and their preferences. That kind of key insight allows you to get relevant. You are able, with those insights, to meet your people where they are. So that's the first crucial environmental element to remember. The second thing that is pointed out in a recent study released by the PR firm Weber Shandwick on employee engagement is that everybody's talking. Although we may think that the communications department or the president of your organization and the board or any combination we've previously relied on is sort of the mouthpiece for the organization, that's just not true anymore. According to this study, 50% of your colleagues are talking about your organization without being asked, whether you know it, like it, or not. And that's in addition to folks like board members, and volunteers. The problem is, if you ask 5 of them what your organization does, you're likely to get 5 different answers. That's right. The study found that only 42% of these messengers, the unofficial messengers accurately describe your organization's impact, much less convey the messages that drive membership and other actions necessary to achieve the impact you strive for. What that 42% success rate means is that 58% of your messengers are sharing inconsistent or incorrect messages. Because our trust is so battered by the pummeling of content and the fake news and fake content, Audiences really get confused and concerned when they hear things about your organization that seem wrong or conflicting information from different sources. If you share this type of message, you're likely to diminish trust, create doubt, and thoroughly confuse the very people you're striving to engage and activate. Our quest today is going to be, and I promise you you'll succeed, learn how to put your communication champions into play. What this approach does is goes way beyond any opportunity to just put your finger in the dike of inconsistent or incorrect messages. And I'll show you how. As a bonus, you'll find that these messengers can access your target audiences, but folks that you don't have the opportunity to, you may be able to access them through a cold email or a cold call or direct mail piece, but you don't have the same kind of relationship. What your messengers are going to be able to do is to ask questions, listen to what they hear, and share what they learn. And I'm going to share some examples of this today. But first, one more poll. I'm wondering if any of you already have effective communications champions at work. How many of you already have effective communications champions at work? Please choose one of the following. Yes, no, I'm not sure, sort of. I'm eager to hear what you have to say because I bet that some of you are already the kind of team leaders who have expertise to share with the group today. Okay, we're about to wind down on this. All right. So what we're seeing is that great, 30% of you are already underway with this technique. And so what I want to ask you guys to do is to, when it's chat in any suggestions that you use from your in your program, any differences of opinion. And if we have time at the end, I'd love for our moderators today to share your expertise out with the group. I'm so happy there's new additional experts on the webinar today. 36% of you, by the way, said sort of. So you're halfway there. We're going to get you further down the road today. Speaking of road, let me introduce you to what I call the poster child for this kind of program. That is Road Scholar. Road Scholar is travel and education via travel nonprofit based in the US, and it was formerly called Elder Hostel. Rebranded about 8 years ago to reflect its programming, which was broadened to engage those as young as 50, which was skewing a lot younger than it had previously served. It has a small staff, and they found this rebranding tough going. Like many of you, they really were topped out on the communications efforts they could make. So they developed a new program called the Volunteer Ambassador Program. So the organization Road Scholar, formerly known as Elder Hostel, has a wonderful example of this kind of volunteer or non-traditional messenger program, and they call it their ambassador program. They've had a real marketing struggle as they've tried to introduce a new name for the organization as about 8 years ago. They really have hit a wall in doing so with their existing staff and budget, so they put in place these ambassadors. And what these ambassadors have been able to do for Elder Hostel is really incredible. They've been able to build the strength of existing relationships. because there's no better proof of value than folks who have actually been program participants, spreading the word on the value of their experience and how it really changed their lives. It's the strongest kind of testimony you could ever have. And it's always much more credible if someone else spreads the word on how valuable and how great your organization is, rather than you doing it yourselves. In addition, these ambassadors have the opportunity to increase the reach of the organization and to ignite relationships with prospects, folks they hadn't met before. Each one of these ambassadors has their own sphere of influence, friends, families, plus their geographic community, professional connections, etc. And whereas your organization, like Rhodes Scholar, didn't have access to or credibility in these other networks, your messengers do. So by your messengers being in a way the conduit for your organizations, they become more effective spokespeople than traditional communications or formal spokespeople such as your CEO or executive director or board representative. You see, people still trust their personal networks of families, friends, colleagues, etc. And in an era where trust of the media, government agencies, and others is way down, Edelman reports that recommendations from one's own networks remain trusted. So we're in good shape with this program. The bonus, of course, is that these ambassadors also are bringing a lot of vital information back to Rhodes Scholar. For example, they were able they learned, and this was something that was difficult to learn, but necessary, I would say, that nobody understood who they were, that people still thought of them as elder hostile, that people still felt it was an organization that provided educational travel opportunities for those more in the 70s, 80s, and up range. In addition, by giving these folks the opportunity to help change that misperception, Rhodes Scholar actually boosted those individuals' satisfaction and loyalty. So it's a win, 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 and I could say that really again and again. So those are the two things that you want to keep in mind. First of all, that it's really about your audience, is not about you. And second of all, that everybody's talking. They're talking whether you engage them as messengers or ambassadors or not, whether you train them or not. So why not engage them? Keep them focused on actually making a real difference, which is going to motivate them and help your own agenda. There are 3 success factors that you need to have in place before implementing this program. First of all, is you need to make sure that you have a culture of trust and respect. You got to know where you're starting from. And if you don't have this now, you don't have in your organization, and this is definitely has to be present in the leadership. If you don't trust your staff, see them as assets, then you have to take tiny, tiny steps towards bringing this kind of program to light. Because this program only succeeds if you trust people, encourage people to be themselves with rich personal voices. That's what connects, not to have a core of spamming robots all saying the exact thing in the exact way. We know that's not genuine. Also, when you treat your folks as insiders who are helping to steer a goal or an impact, they're going to love it, and they're going to see this as a real opportunity rather than a series of dreary tasks. What this is really a mindset change, and the change or the place you need to get to is the fact that everybody can communicate well. This is a screenshot from the social media ambassador page from the Austin, Texas Public Library. They really trust everyone, and they are inviting any supporter who wants to become a part of their core of ambassadors to sign up via email. There's no screening. They're very bold. I don't advise that, at least for your first entry into this kind of techniques. But it just shows they're a wonderful example of having real trust in their supporters and pride as well. The other thing you have to have is internal support from the powers that be and from early adopters of the program. The Weber-Shandwick study reports that 1/3 of employees encourage employees to use social media, email, and conversations to share info about the organization, and that they get outsized impact from doing so. The study says that these employees are significantly likely to help boost sales. Read that: memberships, revenue, donations, and program registration for your organization. So this is your opportunity to turn what messengers are already doing into the big time. Here's pictured one of my clients, Kathy Khrushchev, who's president of the Community Foundation of Findlay, Hancock County. And Kathy, I went to give a workshop in this program to the foundation staff. And at Kathy's, her left, our right, is Kevin. Kevin is the head of the hub of social service agencies that the foundation sponsors in the city of Findlay, Ohio. Kevin was dragged pretty much kicking and screaming to this workshop. He came in saying he had nothing to say and he didn't know when he would say it. During the course of the workshop, and because Kathy is out there herself sharing stories all the time, as many leaders do, and that's really a key part of their job, but through that and through the course of working together with the group, Kevin came to see that he had heard himself wonderful stories, moving stories, just from people, conversations with folks in the halls of the building, and that he couldn't wait to share those stories. So Kathy's internal support and modeling really changed his mind. That's really important. The third thing that has to be in place is some early adopters, folks who are willing to take the first step, and you have to really trust them. The best way to get broad support for this program is actually to activate the powers that be, like Kathy, as the first ones out. Assume that these folks are already spreading the word in conversations, speeches, both in their formal work responsibilities and in their own circles. A great way to activate them to get going beyond that is to start, if they're not on one social platform, one social media platform, if they're not already there. And here's an example of that from another client, the Goodman Theater in Chicago, which is a repertory theater. They, on their organizational Twitter account, have 18,000 followers, but their artistic director, Robert Falls, sort of piggybacks on the organizational Twitter account with his own reach out to 5,000 followers. Now, I'm sure some of those folks are already getting tweets from the Goodman Theater, but how wonderful that they have access to the personal voice of Robert, the artistic director. And there are a lot of folks, I'm sure, who aren't following the Goodman Theater on Twitter. So that's just an example of how this works. So you have to make sure that you have these three things in place: a culture of trust and respect, internal support, and active, effective, enthusiastic early adopters. They're going to set you up for success. And now we're going to jump into the 4 steps to success in putting together a team to drive your impact forward. The first thing you want to do is figure out where to start. What's a great first out campaign that you're going to start moving with? Now, of course, we all want to be successful with that first campaign. And excuse me. So the thing is what to focus on first. So let me
Sonia, I'm not able to get that poll up.
Oh,
Could you
yeah.
help me with that?
Yep.
Excellent. Excellent. So if you had, when you are thinking about this program, what do you think you'd focus on first? What's the first thing you'd put your messengers to work on? A campaign scheduled and planned, a new program or service, big change or news, or to power up existing conversations? What do you think would be the best bet for you going forward? Which is most likely to succeed? Which needs a boost? What do you think? Still waiting for some of you to come in? Okay, so power up existing conversations. You guys, you're exactly reading my mind. The second greatest amount of you responded to campaign scheduled and planned. So that's really the right way to start, is with that, excuse me, existing conversations. So the reason that that's the great place to start is that it has the probability of having the greatest impact, and it's the least risky. It's especially powerful if staff, for example, are sharing confused or inconsistent messages, or if you're aware, as Rhodes Scholar was in the case of its name change, that's something you're doing, that there's a misunderstanding about it. Here's a great example of how this works from Karima. Karima is one of the Houston Mayor's Office of Special Events social media ambassadors, and they're encouraged to post via their personal Twitter accounts using this hashtag that I don't see here, it probably got cut off, as messengers for the mayor, sort of jumping on or piggybacking on what Mayor Turner's Office of Special Events has already announced. Now, let me mention here that Karima has 8,000 Twitter followers, and most of those folks are probably folks who aren't directly hearing from the mayor's office of special events. And this is a pretty dramatic example of how this can work. Once you've had one or two instances of powering up your messengers on existing conversations, the next group of you was absolutely correct. You want to put them to work with a campaign. Aligning your messengers with a specific scheduled, planned membership renewal, a programmatic campaign, or a fundraising campaign is really most powerful. That's because they're going to respond to the concrete deadlines for this kind of campaign, and they're motivated by measurable results. This kind of campaign also makes it possible for you to set specific measurable objectives, such as event registration, content shares, leads, against which to measure the success of this all organization team program. What you see here on the screen is a wonderful example from the Alzheimer Association of Nebraska, another client who have Purple Profiles of Courage. These are a group of folks, most of them connected in some way to someone who has or had Alzheimer's. And they are really the leaders in raising funds and participating in the annual fundraising walk for the organization. Here's the profile of one of those participants who represents his mom, who has Alzheimer's. So that is a really very, very important technique to align folks with the campaign. What you, of course, want to do to make the most impact via your messengers is to share your objectives for that campaign or for that existing conversation in a clear and inspiring way. And again, for your messengers, that turns the program into an exciting opportunity rather than a dull set of tasks. Your next decision is who you're going to engage as your first team of messengers for this pilot. Here are the messengers who have volunteered to spread the word about the special events from Houston's mayoral office. What I recommend for your pilot, and actually for the first few times out, is to start with staff, colleagues, if you have them. With these folks, you can most easily see how they're doing, what's going on, support them, train them effectively, and redirect if necessary. If you don't have staff to carry this out, if you're small staffed, everybody's already communicating and doing it well, or if you're all volunteer, then get volunteers on board here. Folks who are really loyal volunteers with a track record with your organization. That's the way to go. If I also suggest that you really start, if possible, with email and conversations. We'll get back to that issue a little later. One thing when you're thinking about who is, you also have to make sure that your program is engaging to the people who you're asking to serve as messengers for your organization. Rhodes Scholar has a wonderful outline of specific benefits, some tangible, a discount towards any Rhodes Scholar trip, some intangible, it's fun and it's easy. You get to meet new people and share your love of learning and travel, but you have to share the what's in it for them with the folks who you're hoping to bring on as messengers. So think about what and whom to launch with. Next, you want to design your messenger's role and the policies, tools, and training that's going to make it easy for them to succeed. Be clear about what their roles and responsibilities are, as well as what your criteria are for selecting them. You don't want to create any bad feelings. As you do, of course, want to clarify what you want folks to do, including the messages you want them to share, but don't expect 100% alignment. You have to show your trust and just know that people aren't going to be saying, talking from a script. It's not going to work for them, and it's not going to work for to increase impact. But do create these policies and guidelines and share them with your team. Again, our poster child for this kind of program, Rhodes Scholar, has a wonderful resource center, publicly available, by the way, so dig in there, with all kinds of resources, policies, and guidelines for its messengers. They have a great overall ambassador guide, which I want you to take a look at while you still have this training fresh in your mind. You want to share messages, clear messages, knowing that they're likely to be translated to messengers' own words and style, unless you tell them otherwise. So you want to make sure that you tell them what needs to be said in their as is versus what can be said in their own words. And make sure to mention, especially if you're putting them to work on something that's controversial or respond to a crisis, what not to say as well. Here's a message, an as-is message, or almost as is, that Rhodes Scholar shares with its messengers. So this is an example of how you get the info and the guidelines out to your team. One of the biggest questions and the biggest fears, I'd like to say, is do we allow communications champions to interact with members on social media? It's a big question. I do recommend that you start first with personal communications. It's safe and it gives you a chance to see how folks are doing. But on the other hand, if it's a natural campaign or conversations that are really taking place online, or social online communications are going to give a huge boost, I urge you to go for it. That's really what trust is. The Austin Public Library has an incredible number of posts from its social media ambassadors. And this is just one I looked at on Instagrams. Every single one of them has this hashtag, as you see in the second line from the bottom, APL ambassador, and that allows anybody to check them. So they have had 1,500 Instagram posts this year. So just imagine the reach they're getting to folks in the Austin area via their messengers and folks that are not in direct touch or on a mailing list that the library has right now. So that's an incredible increase in reach. And again, no one's more trusted than a friend, family member, or colleague. In addition to these, you want to have tools and templates on hand that make it easy for folks to do it your way. Here's an example that includes social media posts that a messenger can just cut and paste. Here's a cheat sheet. This is actually created to be folded up and folded in a pocket. So don't forget hard copy in your tools, as well as in your communications channels that you use. Events can also have a lot of impact in building your team of messengers. This is an event that the Junior League of Greater Winter Haven put together for members to bring friends, and they also created these invites for folks to hand out. So they made it easy for people to spread the word. Leave behinds is great. Again, something tangible. This is something called a palm card that current donors to the Central Florida Foundation, who are serve as messengers, hand out when it makes sense. So those tools and templates are really useful and increase the odds that your folks are going to get the word out and going to get it out in the most powerful way. Finally, you have to have some training, and the training is going to help you build the confidence, ease, enjoyment, and success of your messengers. You want to coach folks what to do when X, Y, and Z happens, who to ask for help when they need it, and what to do in other scenarios. It's great if you can do this training in person. The second best approach is to train the trainer. So if you have multiple chapters that are geographically dispersed, or you're an organization with many branches, or whether within your state or province or national, you can train the trainer. So bring a representative of each of those outposts in for in-person training, and then they become the expert for their own group of messengers. Finally, an option, if none of this is going to really work, none of the in-person stuff, is to do an online training, much like Rhodes Scholar does for its ambassadors. And of course, training folks who are on your staff or even volunteers is going to be much easier to do in person than when you get sort of outside supporters from your target audiences, like Rhodes Scholar is putting into play. With these approaches and the policies, guidelines, tools, and training, you're all set to launch your program. But there are a couple of things I want you to be ready with at the moment you say go. One is support. You have to be there to give the support to folks as they lose confidence, have questions, run into a difficult solution. Any or all of these methods works: an FAQ page, a hotline, a private Facebook group for your messengers, or a Slack chat. I have seen all of those work with great success. Also, having these conversations is going to have added value for you as an instigator for this program, because you're going to hear what there's confusion about, what's not working, and you're also going to have the opportunity to hear insights that your messengers gather from your target audiences. This has been working so well at Rhodes Scholar that they have actually one person, I'm not sure actually if she's full-time or part-time. I work in another capacity with these folks, who is the manager of the ambassador program. So she is on for support. Make sure the support is there. That is absolutely crucial to keeping your folks as effective, active, and engaged messengers. Other ways to do it, of course, are rewards. Thank you is a must. But in addition to saying thank you, and other ways of recognizing your messengers is to spread the news, provide a gift card, or a night out with the team in the case of staff members or volunteers. The Austin Public Library invites their ambassadors to special events, so it's exclusive, which is always attractive. And at those events, this is something from the invitation to an upcoming event. They invite folks to bring their family or other guests. They let folks know that they're going to be receiving small gifts. And at the same time, they're revving them up for the next campaign. At this event, ambassadors are going to get a sneak preview of exciting upcoming library events that would benefit from their support and social networking. So this kind of communication is representative of a program that puts its people, its messengers first, and it really thanks them and recognizes them in a very significant and public way. And of course, another very important reward is in the realm of advancement. It may not be as giant as a promotion, but giving someone the opportunity to attend the conference or speak as a representative of your organization is a wonderful professional development opportunity and is a step towards a stronger, even stronger professional future. Of course, this is not a one-off. You've invested a bit in getting this program going. You have folks who are, I hope, engaged, active, and ready to go on your next campaign. But you want to make sure that using both anecdotal feedback and any stats or data that you may have, you assess the value of this program. You want to see what you have, look at all that information, and then analyze it so that you can judge the impact of this program versus the ROI, what it takes to deliver the program. As a result of that process, you're going to figure out if you need to tweak the program, if you're ready to expand it to a second campaign, a different kind of campaign, or add messengers, or very frankly, it may not be the best way. You might learn that it's not the best way for you to increase your impact, and you decide to stop it. That's the program in summary, and I can't wait to hear your questions and see how I can help you put this program into play in your organization. Over to you, Sonia, for questions.
Great, thank you, Nancy. So a few of the questions that came in, I have one here. I tried to build an ambassador program like this, but people said they would promote our product, but they didn't. How do you ensure that people promote what they have agreed to?
Well, first of all, I'd make sure that you're choosing the right group of messengers, especially when you start this program, because typically if it gains power, then it's going to be easier to recruit others. So don't ask everyone to do that. Be really specific about who you're looking for, who is, fulfills those criteria of being a strong messenger, their personalities a fit, they're in the right role. And who is most reliable. I guess that needs to be one of your criteria. And then make sure that you have the right incentives in place. I think to formalize a program, and not just to ask people to participate, but to ask them to meet certain goals and to, share what your overall goal is, and then maybe to set some personal goals that are very doable is one way to get people to do it. And if people don't do it, then they are obviously not the right messengers for you. You can't make people do this, even if it's written into their job description. And if they're forced to do it, they don't want to do it, they're not going to be effective.
Great. And next question is, I know that this approach would have incredible value for our association, but our CEO will never go for it. He's just too traditional. How can I convince him to give it a try?
Well, there are two approaches I think will help you convince your leadership to give it a try. Well, actually three. The first is to show the powers that be, and maybe that's even more than just that one person, examples of other organizations that are doing this well. And again, you're going to get the links of some of the examples, all the examples I mentioned today in the follow-up email. So that sort of peer pressure or keeping up with the field can be a very useful motivator for leaders who are hesitant to jump into something like this. In addition, I'd show him the stats from the study that the Weber-Shandwick study, also linked in the follow-up email, which says that 50% of your team is talking whether you've given them permission or want them to or not. So folks are already talking about your organization and its work. And this program gives you the opportunity to train them to do it in a way that's going to advance your organization's impact.
Okay, great. And next one here is, we are a volunteer organization. We have some really bad ambassadors right now. How do we move them out of the way to make way for better people?
Wow, that is so tricky, because when people are volunteering their time, it's you know, it's a gift. They're making a gift of their time. Well, first of all, I'd really kind of have some conversations and understand specifically what's not going right. Do these people just not have, you know, sort of lively, engaging personalities? Are they very introverts and they don't have big personal networks? What's the problem? Well, how are they creating a barrier for spreading effective messengers? Are they spreading the wrong messengers? I can't tell you how frequently I hear people complaining about board members, and that's a very tricky conversation, who aren't being effective messengers. You know, concurrently with that, I'd say select a very create a list of criteria that you really stick to when you're asking folks to be volunteer messengers. And maybe you want to go so far as to have them fill out an online questionnaire, or have a brief, it depends on the scale that you're looking to develop, have a brief phone conversation to select folks who really fit the profile of those you would succeed. Again, you want to make sure that you've done everything on your end to make this work, and that's going to include the policies and guidelines and the tools and training.
Great. Okay, and I think this will be our last question because we're coming to the top of the hour here. How often can you call on a volunteer for action? What is too much, and what is the sweet spot? Asking for something once a month, a week, just your thoughts and experience. Would love to know.
Sure. Well, I think you don't want to ask a volunteer to spread the word on a particular campaign or information any more than once a month. I think it would be pretty overwhelming, and that if you asked folks to spread the word on two things at one time, that would be very confusing and really would be burdensome and unlikely to be a value add for your organization. It also depends what other ways folks are volunteering for your organization. You want to make sure you don't cannibalize other other valuable volunteer efforts for this program. It's generally something that can be additive, because you're asking folks, for the most part, to actually include something in conversations they're having. And sometimes you'll ask them to more formally go out, like Rhodes Scholars asks its ambassadors, or you might ask people to do a post on their Facebook page or their Instagram page. But I think once a month is the way to go. And less than that, you don't want to get less than, let's see, one ask a quarter. because people are going to fall out of the habit, and they're going to be much less likely to spread the word when you try to reactivate them down the line.
Perfect. Great. Well, thank you everyone for all your questions. And if we didn't get to your question, feel free to check out Nancy's blog, gettingattention.org, and as well as her resource worksheet that we posted in the chat. Okay, so Nancy, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your experience and advice with us today. That was a great session, and I know that our audience really appreciates your advice and your experience and learning more about how we can drive impact and increase that with our team. So now, as I mentioned, we are going to share the recording with you in a follow-up email within the next day or two. So look out for that. And now that we're coming to the end of the webinar, I want to quickly cover, sorry, I'm just going to make sure everybody can see my screen here. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so yeah, we are going to be giving out the recording in a follow-up email within the next few days or so. So be on the lookout for that. And now that we are coming to the end of the webinar, I want to quickly mention that if you're new to Wild Apricot or you have any questions for us, I'll cover some free resources and offers in just a moment. Okay, so if you are new to Wild Apricot, I want to let you know that you can find more free educational content on our Academy page. Stephen's going to paste a link in the chat, and this is where you can find more webinars, including recordings of all our past webinars on there. I also recommend you take a look at the resources and content on our blog and articles because there's lots of helpful content there about growing your membership, running successful events, recruiting volunteers, and so on. And all of that content is free. And lastly, if you're running a membership organization, whether that's a nonprofit, association, or club, or any type of organization, you are welcome to try our software at no cost for 30 days. So feel free to take advantage of this opportunity, especially if you're looking for ways to automate a lot of the tasks that consume your life. So Stephen's going to paste the link in the chat window, and you can just click on the link you see there, and you'll be taken to our website where you can enter your name, email, and organization name, and you're ready to go with your free trial. Also, if you'd like to receive a call from one of our coaches, just email coaches@wildapricot.com and one of our coaches will get in touch with you to schedule a call. And Stephen's just going to paste the email in the chat window now. Okay, so if you have any other questions about Wild Apricot, you're able to stick around for a few minutes here. I've got Stephen sitting next to me and I'm going to pass the mic over to him, and he's happy to answer any questions you have because we do always get a lot of questions about our software whenever we do a webinar. So if you have any questions about Wild Apricot, please type them into the chat window now, and I'm going to pass the mic over to Stephen.
All right, hi there everybody. Thanks for your patience. I hope you found today's webinar helpful, and I'm on now to just address any questions that you have about the Wild Apricot software itself. Regarding the CAE certifications, a couple of questions just popped in here at the end. I believe what you want to do is just go ahead and submit the request to the CAE site through the link that we posted a little bit earlier, and what they end up doing is they'll then reach out to us just to verify that the webinar was eligible, and we'll confirm it from our side. If you have any questions about that, or if anything doesn't quite add up, feel free to send a quick email to coaches@wildapricot.com or even sales@wildapricot.com, and we'll make sure that we get you a proper written answer for that. So now I want to dive into the Wild Apricot software itself and just any questions you have about the platform. Just to lead things in, one of the most common questions that we get is about whether or not Wild Apricot can integrate with existing websites. A lot of you guys are coming in with WordPress websites or Wix websites, Squarespace, you name it. And even though Wild Apricot does offer an integrated website builder, maybe you don't want to migrate to it. Maybe you want to just keep the site that you have already. And so that's actually totally fine. You can embed Wild Apricot's key areas of functionality. So membership application forms, member profiles, event calendars, event registration forms, you name it. All of that can be carried into your existing website using our embeddable widgets. And all of that information is then just kind of seamlessly on your existing website, and information entered in there is posted back to your Wild Apricot database for everyone to, or for you to track and get proper reporting on, so it interfaces with the rest of Wild Apricot. So at this point, just feel free to paste any questions that you have here into the question box, and we'll just pick them up from there. I wanted to touch also on a few questions people often have about event registrations and event reporting, because it's a great way to engage with non-members who are coming and attending your events. After an event has been completed and you've gotten all the registrations captured in Wild Apricot, you can go to the registrants and invitees list, and you can grab people who perhaps just attended, because you can track whether or not they've actually attended using our check-in function, or just non-members who signed up to a particular event, and you can send them targeted emails after the fact. That can be a really useful tool for engagement. So a question that's just come in here is, does Wild Apricot software support printed invoice, printed membership cards, and printed membership renewals versus email only? So I will say to that, it's definitely more email oriented. The idea is that people can access everything they need directly through the Wild Apricot website you've built, though you can print invoices and membership cards and renewal emails on an individual basis. So it doesn't support bulk printing, which may be what you're getting at. It is more about getting away from paper-based communications and allowing people to just interact through the website. So there's still definitely merit in that. All right, so again, just feel free to paste any additional questions as they come to you. Another pretty common question is just whether or not Wild Apricot's websites are mobile friendly. Because at this point, a lot of people are accessing websites through the phone, and they don't necessarily want to go to a computer to get all your content. And so the good news is, yes, Wild Apricot's websites are completely mobile friendly. All of our default themes are. So you just pick the theme that you like the look of the best, add your content in, and it will scale down for mobile devices quite nicely. You also can use our mobile apps. So we have a mobile app for members, which allows for some basic stuff like viewing of a membership directory. Say you have a business directory, if you're more of that kind of organization and your members are businesses, that's a great use of it. And it also allows for easy registration for events. So someone can open up the member app from Wild Apricot, go to your organization's event list, and sign up for events directly through there. It's another great way to just reach out to the more modern generation here with their phones and everything. All right, so I'll just take a few more moments, and if any additional questions are coming in, you know, feel free to post them. We'll make sure they get answered. And if you have any questions that weren't answered as well, again, you can reach out to us at coaches@wildapricot.com. Maybe you don't want to ask it in the chat, and we can schedule a one-on-one session with you. So one question that's come in here is, can we hire someone to run our Wild Apricot site? The answer is yes. So Wild Apricot itself is provided as a self-service software, and we have coaches like myself here to just kind of help you get set up, but maybe you don't have time for that. That's fine. We actually have a directory of service partners, and I'm actually gonna paste a link right here. It's wildapricot.com/partners. These guys are experts in the software, custom coding, anything you can think of, really. They'll set, for a fee, of course, they'll set up the site for you, and some of them even do offer ongoing administration. When you view the partner directory, you can filter by the services offered. So you can filter for ongoing administration or account administration, and specifically reach out to the people there to get a quote. Does Wild Apricot work with a listserv is another question that's come up. At the moment, it does not. We don't have listserv functionality built into the software, but we have other methods of engagement, such as the email blasts or the discussion forum gadgets that you can add onto your site, which allow for some easy member-to-member communication. All right, and with that, it has been a pleasure speaking with you all, and I do hope again that you found the webinar useful. We've got another webinar running a little bit later this week, and we actually run them every single week, usually on Thursdays. And so feel free to check out the Academy page and sign up for those if you're interested in learning more. Otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of the day, and thanks for coming out. Take care.